I'd like to dive into what we've seen with the Atlantic, with signal messaging, attack plans that we've seen published in this thread. Democrats pouncing on this moment. How do you read this entire story?
Well, I read it as something that's being handled by the ones involved, and I think that at this point in the time, the Democrats are having a hard time understanding how Donald Trump came to Washington, D.C. to remake the government, make it more efficient, make it smaller, and they're grasping at anything they possibly can. And so I let that be the noise that it is, and we'll deal with that. And while I'm focused on making sure that our veterans get the absolute best care that they can.
Yeah, well, we understand that, of course, but this is no doubt, and even acknowledged by the White House, an inadvertent mistake. Someone who was not supposed to be in a communication channel ended up there. And I understand there's an investigation underway to sort of iron out the details into how that happened. But do you have confidence in NSA Mike Waltz to continue on in his role, considering what was discussed in this chat ultimately ended up happening?
Well, look, I think there's one person that you need to ask about that, and he made it pretty clear he does, and that's the President of the United States. Donald Trump said that he supports Mike and he supports what's going on. So, look, you support the President. The President has again indicated his support for Mike. I've known Mike for many years. We served together in Congress. I think that's where this, frankly, needs to be left at the White House and for them. And again, for people that want to deal with it, I think, again, is more of a discussion point that is, again, when they're trying to find something against an administration that's doing so much good work that we're still talking about this after a few days, instead of saying, how do we make life better for Americans, lowering food prices, lowering egg prices, lowering gas prices, putting veterans first at the VA. Those are the things that I'm going to focus on.
Not only that, the Red Sea attacks 180 and increasing. So there is a lot to talk about. You're right about that. Let's get back to Veterans Affairs if we can with you. I believe the last time that we spoke on this program, we talked about cutting. We talked about cuts and wasteful spending, finding that and getting rid of that, and again, beefing up in areas that you can. What is your top objective? If we talk to you today, what would be your top objective right now for the VA?
I think it's the same as we had before, and I love talking to y'all about this because, unfortunately, we've gotten to a point, it's seemingly at the VA, where the VA was more, unfortunately, about itself than it was the veteran. And so what we've done with the cuts, with contracts that we found, that we've talked about how we've redirected funds back to the frontline healthcare, we're putting more money in. We just put out a policy just this past week concerning the gender dysphoria, and that we're not longer going to promote the process of changing one's sex. If you're currently in the VA and was getting hormone treatments, you'll continue it, but we're not going to do that anymore here. And I think most people would agree with us. It's a pretty common sense thing to do, because that's not what we're about at the VA. And we're going to take that money that we'd be spending and put it toward disabled veterans and prosthetics and things like that. So again, it's going through the maze. We have a bureaucratic maze here that is really difficult for our employees, who are some of the best in the world, to actually work through. So my goal is to make sure that we're being efficient, but also finding solutions to not only how much money we're spending, but are we doing it in a way that helps the veterans get what they need.
Yeah, smart spending. It's a good goal to have, definitely, when running the Veterans Affairs Department. Can I ask you, though, about some medals of honor that we saw yesterday, the National Medal of Honor Day? This is incredible. It's really important, obviously, to take the time to recognize those who've served our country so honorably. Can you speak to us about the history of this ceremony and who took the time to really show appreciation yesterday to these gentlemen?
Yeah. It was pretty amazing being there with the president and the vice president. He deeply admires and deeply loves our veterans. He has, and it's shown in everything that he's done. And he walked in there yesterday. One of the things he said, "I like being with you. You make me feel brave." And you look at the stories and the history. I was standing next to, sitting. He was sitting right there. The oldest one we have is 92 years old. If you remember the movie, We Were Soldiers, this was Crandall. This is the guy who flew the helicopters. He's sitting right there. These are people who did extraordinary things, who came from normal, ordinary backgrounds to do amazing things for our country, and that are above and beyond any simple call to duty. This is our honor to stand with them. It's our honor to be with them, and to hear them just humbly come up and say, we're just glad to be here. To see that, these are people who, again, deserve our respect, deserve our honor for what they have done for our country and for the ones, but also they are also been through a lot themselves. And so for me, it's an order of prayer. It's an order of lifting them up, making sure they have, because most of them, to be a recipient of that, they had to go through a very difficult life situation that most of us would pale to understand.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.